Inspiration, creation, and the laws regarding these subjects have spawned a giant discussion online about free speech and copyrights. The majority of the people, as opposed to the corporations, believe that fan work, critique, and parody are not only fine, but something to be encouraged. I absolutely agree. Entitlement is a very contentious word many millennials have rejected, partly because of its association with those defending corporate takedowns of fan works and parody. For the purposes of education, I'd like to break down how inspiration works and differentiate between different kinds of inspiration. I'll do this primarily with creepypasta as examples. Typically, I'd like to use the term thievery and stealing to further a caricature of myself, but I'll refrain from that here for the purposes of clarity. Rework, recontextualize, recitation. Joseph Campbell observed the phenomenon in fiction and introduced the concept of the monomyth in his book, The Hero with 1,000 Faces. The idea is that heroes often go through a standard set of trials and events in order to tell a story. So, Jesus Christ, Luke Skywalker, and Inuyasha are all heroes that tell a tale with a very standard skeleton. But still, no one would say that any of these stories are ripping off one another. The skeleton doesn't define these stories. It's the meat and the skin. Jesus Christ's story is one of forgiveness and sacrifice. Its goal is prescriptive. The story offers a lifestyle. Luke Skywalker's story is one of drama and revelation. Its goal is constructive. The story pushed special effects forward. Inuyasha's story is one of inner conflict and betrayal. Its goal is expressive. The story makes us feel more human. All of those different stories are told with the same skeleton, sure, yet the effects and the aesthetics are so dramatically different that we'd never call it plagiarism. The skeleton is no different than paint, or a recording microphone, or a printing press. It's more of a tool for an artist to use and understand than something to be judged as art itself, though I'm not one to get into say what is and isn't art. In creepypasta terms, stories like Squidward's Suicide, Dead Bart, and SuicideMouse.avi all fit the same skeleton. That is, the lost episode trope. This is a tired trope for sure, but each of the aforementioned stories offers something unique. Squidward's Suicide speaks of images hidden in a children's show. Dead Bart ends with a spine-tingling revelation, and Suicide Mouse brings to light a disturbing video with shocking audio. This is what I've termed rework. That is to say, every story has been told, but not from everyone's perspective. Taking one of the previous stories, Dead Bart, we get a glimpse into the writing staff's minds during the early production of The Simpsons. Now this vision is fictional, but it lends a suspension of disbelief. Information is being added to the story. The Simpsons is now surrounded by this strange cloud of unease and unhappiness. This atmosphere of horror is an additional context to this beloved TV show. This atmosphere is new context. The Simpsons is being recontextualized in a creepy manner. Recontextualization is a popular technique in creepypasta. The remix and nostalgia cultures of the internet take classic characters in video games from bygone eras and make the environment around them something creepy, scary, or supernatural. If Rule 34 of the internet is a joke commenting on how everything is recontextualized as sexual somewhere, then it is also true by now that everything has been turned into a horror story or creepypasta by this point. No exception. Now that we know what reworking and recontextualizing is, let's look at recitation. Recitation is to completely take material and repost it elsewhere without adding or subtracting content to streamline or change meaning. For instance, reading a creepypasta you found on the Creepypasta Wiki. Reciting the written story word for word without offering criticism or comment isn't creating content. I've seen this compared to Let's Plays where people play games while giving commentary. Love it or hate it, the main reason people watch Let's Plays is the people doing the Let's Plays, or for the social aspect of it. Sometimes, Let's Plays are done to promote the game being played or to make fun of the game being played. In rare cases, Let's Plays are done of games that people can't get a copy of due to its rarity or region locking. Some exceptions exist, but at the end of the day, Let's Players are what draw people in, not the games being played. No one that reads creepypasta aloud draws people in with their personality. It's the stories that they read that do that. I've read the stories of others on my channel and elsewhere, but people don't come here for that. They don't like me for that. The small following that I have is a result of the stories I wrote, the work I've done to add to the community. Some don't like to read stories and prefer to listen to them read aloud, in which case, reading creepypasta isn't new content, but rather a sort of service, much like closed captioning for the deaf, or translating into English anime with English dubs. Even then, those are a way to get past language barriers, when presumably, those old enough to listen to creepypastas should also be able to read them for themselves. Furthermore, captioning and dubbing are done with the consent of the owners of the material. I am not discouraging anyone from reading anything on YouTube, legal or illegal, but do it for the love of it, not the views, not the Patreon donations, and not the AdSense pennies. Lastly, make sure dues are going to the right places. If a creepypasta inspired you to create something, even if it's a recitation, which sometimes is even more work than parody, do your best to inform the audience about where the story came from.